Welcome to the Silent Scripter, the podcast where we explore the stories that hide in plain sight, the experiences that seem ordinary on the surface, but reveal something far more complicated when viewed through a different lens. Today, we're examining a painful and deeply human story, the anatomy of a betrayal. Not a dramatic crime or a shocking headline, but something many people may recognize. A friendship that slowly transformed from a source of comfort into a source of devastation. It's the kind of story that often only makes sense in hindsight. When you're living through it, the warning signs can feel insignificant. But when you look back, they form a trail of clues that was there all along. Our story begins with someone at a crossroads. They were searching for direction, struggling with uncertainty, and looking for answers about who they wanted to become.
A vulnerable place to be, and vulnerability often attracts people, for better or for worse.
In this case, that's when they met someone new, someone who seemed to have all the answers, confident, charismatic, ambitious, the kind of person who walks into a room and immediately commands attention.
The perfect antidote to uncertainty.
Exactly. The friendship developed quickly. There was an intense connection and a sense of being truly understood. The new friend offered advice, encouragement, and grand visions for the future. For a while, everything felt ideal. And that's often how these stories begin. You focus on the qualities that inspire you and overlook the details that don't quite fit. Looking back, the warning signs were there. Small inconsistencies, stories that changed slightly each time they were told, impressive accomplishments with vague details, promises that quietly disappeared when it was time to deliver. Whenever questions arose, the friend would redirect the conversation with humor, charm, or another captivating story.
And because they're likable, you explain it away.
You tell yourself they're different.
Anything except dishonest.
Exactly. Then another pattern emerged. The friend began expressing concern about other relationships. Are you sure they have your best interests at heart? On the surface, it sounded caring, but over time, it had an effect.
A subtle erosion of the support system that might otherwise provide perspective.
That's right. Friends who expressed concerns became viewed with suspicion. Gradually, the new friend became a source of validation. The situation escalated. The financial requests and small tasks began. At first, they seemed reasonable. A small loan, an exciting business opportunity, a partnership built on trust.
So basically, the kind of opportunity that sounds too good to pass up.
Exactly. There were updates on the project, but the money that was promised to be given back was not.
I am assuming eventually reality became impossible to ignore.
The turning point came through whenever they asked about the money owed. The person would ignore the question and block them.
I bet that's the moment the mask falls away.
Yep. Suddenly, a new narrative emerged.
Which is particularly effective when isolation has already occurred. People hear one story first and it becomes the framework through which they interpret everything else.
The silent scripter was portrayed as unstable, spiteful, obsessive.
Difficult step, but an understandable one.
According to this version of events, there had never been deception at all. There had only been misunderstandings.
From experience, when enough people were key to lie, it can begin to feel stronger than the truth.
And that narrative didn't stay private. The friend began carefully shaping perceptions before anyone could hear the other side.
Exactly.
Relationships that had taken years to build began to crumble. Trust disappeared. And still, our silent scripter wasn't willing to walk away.
And that kind of injustice creates a unique form of suffering. Not only are you dealing with the original betrayal, but you're also carrying the burden of being misunderstood.
They pursued legal action, hoping facts would provide clarity, hoping evidence would reveal the truth. Unfortunately, this is where the betrayal reached its most devastating stage. Documents appeared that seemed to contradict reality. Financial records were altered. Communications were manipulated. Associates of the betrayer provided statements that supported the false narrative. The result was overwhelming confusion, and eventually, the case collapsed. The silent scripter lost not only money and relationships, but also their reputation. The story had been rewritten. The silent scripter was now portrayed as the aggressor. Today, that's where this story remains. The person at its center is still trying to understand what happened, not out of revenge, not out of obsession, but because human beings naturally seek coherence. We want the story to make sense. We want the truth acknowledged. We want closure. But sometimes closure never arrives from the people who hurt us. And perhaps that's the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes the answers we seek are never given. Sometimes the people responsible refuse to explain themselves. And sometimes silence becomes the final act of betrayal. But healing doesn't depend on receiving an explanation. It begins when we stop waiting for someone else to validate our experience. When we accept that our understanding of what happened is enough. When we begin rebuilding our lives from the pieces that remain. It's not a quick process, it's not a simple process, but it is possible. And perhaps reclaiming your own narrative is the first step. A difficult journey, but an essential one. Thank you for joining us on The Secret Scripter. If today's story resonated with you, remember that betrayal can distort your view of yourself, but it doesn't define who you are. Until next time, keep looking beyond the surface.